So you're working for the solving trig equations should look like the following. You would begin by first of all having to rearrange the equation that you've got there. So you've got 7 sine x plus 2 equal to 3, and what you want to try and do is isolate the sine x term. So in the first instance we need to get rid of this plus 2. To get rid of that plus 2, you're going to subtract 2 from each side. That means that your equation would then become 7 sine x equals, and the 2 has disappeared, and then you've just got 1 on the other side. Your next step after that is that you then need to get rid of the 7 here that is multiplying. So the way to do that is to be dividing by 7 on each side. So that leads you to the statement that says sine x equals 1 over 7. So if you've done that, then that's where the first mark is awarded for correctly rearranging the trig equation to a form that we can now go on and solve. So first thing I want you to notice, or at least write down so that you can help yourself get all the values, is that the sine value is positive. So what that means for you, and you should either have a little cast diagram drawn kind of minimum like this, or you might have learned the more detailed one with the related angles on it. But you need to think whereabouts is the sign positive, and of course between 0 and 90 the A here stands for all positive, so we know that that's going to be one of the quadrants we're looking for our angles in. The next place where the sign is positive is between 90 and 180, so that of course would mean you'd be looking to put a tick in there. So in order to work out these angles that we're looking for, so we say for the first quadrant you would get your x by working out sine to the -1 of the fraction value 1/7, and that would produce for you the angle size 8.2132, whole load of other digits, rounding it to 1 decimal place, so 8.2 degrees. That's only one of our values. We need to get the one in the second quadrant, and if you've learned your related angles, you know that once you've got the one in the first quadrant, to get the one in the second, you do 180 minus that first angle. So 180 minus 8.2 means that we end up with x equals 171.8. So your final solution should be these two values. So it should be x equals 8.2, and you should also have x equals 171.8. So both of them together. So that was the first question. The second question you were asked to do involved this tan expression. Everything just works exactly the same as we did a little minute ago. I think the key thing is that you need to isolate the tan term, so that does mean we first of all want to get rid of that plus 5. We do that by subtracting 5 from each side. That means that we're left with 2 tan x equals, and we've got -4 and -5 all together. That means -9. Then we need to get rid of the 2 at the front here, so we divide both sides by 2 to do that. That leads you to tan x equals -9 over 2. And that's where your first mark is. And from there you're then looking to notice that the tan is negative. So when the tan is negative, right, drawing a little cast diagram and indicating for yourself, right, where am I looking for my angles? I know that the tan has to be negative. Well, clearly between 0 and 90 the tan is positive. Between 90 and 180 only the sine is positive, so the tan would be negative in there. between 180 and 270, only the tan is positive, right? That's what the T stands for, so I'm not putting a tick in there. And between 270 and back to the start of 360, only the cos is positive, which means the the tan is definitely negative in there. So I need to be able to get the angles in the second and the fourth quadrant. In order to find those two angles, I do, however, need to get the one in the first quadrant. Now, to find the angle in the first quadrant, you ignore the negative sign. But remember that this is only a means to an end. This is actually not one of our solutions, but this will allow me to work out the x from the first quadrant, and then I can get the angles in the fourth quadrant. So going to the calculator and doing tan to the -1 of, so this lets me work out little x, tan to the -1 of your positive 9 over 2 would lead you to the value of 77.4711, whole load of other digits, we'll call it 77.5 degrees. And I'm going to put big brackets around that because that's not one of my solutions. I'm now going to say, right, I'm looking in my second quadrant, and to get the angle in the second quadrant, I do 180 minus the 77.5, so I end up with a value of 102.5. And then the fourth quadrant, to get the angle in there, you're nearly through 360 degree turn, so 360 minus the 77.5, and that gets you to 282.5. And your final answer, for which you get a mark for each of these, but you do need to list them together. So your solution should be x equals 102.5 and x equals 282.5. Make sure you do not include the 77.5 in your final answer, and you do get a mark here for each of these angles that you've worked out.